Okay, so the Gabby Petito case is almost wrapped up. Her body has been found, and so our condolences to Gabby's friends and family. The boyfriend slash fiance Brian is still missing, depending on who you ask, or on the run. And now we're left with kind of the aftermath as far as what can we learn from the Gabby Petito story. And I think the lessons that are being learned are the wrong lessons to learn from this situation, right? So I'm not going to actually rehash the entire scenario, because if you're watching this video, you should probably know how most of the story goes. But here's the thing. Gabby Petito does not have to be a perfect victim for me to feel sadness or even anger about her death. I'm going to repeat that. Gabby does not need to be the perfect victim for me to feel sadness or even anger about her death. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I've been, listening to podcasts. I've been watching YouTube videos. I've been reading tweets about people's thoughts on this case. And there's this narrative being spun that Brian is this psychopath sicko who was always abusing Gabby. And I'm like, how the hell did y'all come away with that conclusion based over the facts that we all have? All we have are a 911 call, a police body cam footage, an interview of Brian's sister, an interview with one of Gabby's friends, and the stuff that we've seen on the news channels with Gabby's stepfather, her father, and her mother. That's all we have. We know literally nothing about these people, nothing, which kind of speaks to a bigger problem where because we see these people, we've seen these videos, we've seen videos of Gabby out there hiking and stuff. We feel like we know these people, but we don't know these people. Yet people are trying to paint this narrative of Gabby the angel and Brian a psychopath, and no. We don't need to do that. In fact, it is bad that we feel the need to do that. No. So we have the 911 call. Somebody calls saying, "Hey, officer, there's this couple. They're fighting. The guy slapped the girl a bunch of times, or a couple of times. Cops find them. Couple of minutes later, then the police officers begin their own little investigation into what actually happened. After a couple of questions, they reach the conclusion that Gabby in this scenario was the obvious aggressor, and then they take it from there. Now, people that have been watching that body cam footage, it's been a mix of domestic violence advocates, domestic violence survivors, feminists, watching, the body cam footage, which is an hour and 17 minutes, saying that, the police need more training in, domestic violence, because clearly in this situation, they should have saw that Gabby was the real victim versus Brian was gaslighting and, manipulating the officers and laughing and being nervous. And she was the victim because she was crying and doing all that stuff. Cut it out. All of that stuff that you're hearing is a bunch of BS. It's bullshit. You cannot watch a video of a couple one time, right? One time, then draw all of these conclusions about their relationship just off of one video. Everyone has a different starting point or disposition of their personality. And so Brian was, trying to make small talk, crack some jokes, being very nervous. I saw a dude that was a good dude that was nervous because he got pulled over by the police and he didn't know if he was going to jail or not. It seemed like a very reasonable response to getting pulled over, versus Gabby being hysterical, crying her ass off. It's also a very reasonable response given the situation. She was already stressed out, arguing with her partner. She's in this little ass van. I would be frustrated. See, those tears for me wasn't just like sadness or craziness. I think she was just frustrated. And so I'm sitting back, listening to these people draw these huge conclusions about, their relationship. And I'm like, you are pulling this out of your ass. And that's kind of what this case has become. It's been like this big projection project. Like people are kind of just projecting their own biases or how they feel about men in general or women in general and putting it on this case. And it's weird to me. Some of this, I think, has to do with the fact that in this country, unfortunately, we have a Judeo-Christian background, right? And so you don't have to be a Christian in order for these belief systems or ethos to impact you. We struggle with the gray area in this country. We like obvious categories, left, right, good and evil. Gabby's dead, so obviously Brian has to be wicked and evil. And so let me go into his past or into the body cam footage and try to contort whatever I see to paint this narrative that Brian is this evil bastard. And there's no need for that. No need. Now, ironically, Gabby might still be alive had the officers done what they were supposed to do. So I watched the entire hour and 17-minute clip. I think that's the official time. I actually agreed with the officer's assessment that in this specific scenario, Gabby was the primary aggressor. Once again, the police aren't there to diagnose the entire relationship. They're not there to ask her, was she ever abused ever in her entire life as long as she's been with this dude, Brian. That's not their job. But it's also true that this one clip says nothing about their relationship. Gabby's friend's testimony says nothing about their relationship. That's Gabby's friend. Of course, she has a distorted view about their relationship. She's on Gabby's side. I'm sure if you ask one of Brian's friends, they might say, yeah, you know what, Gabby was stressing out Brian too. So this is kind of where we are. I forgot the original point I was trying to make before I went on that little tangent. But, I agreed with the officer's assessment that Gabby was the aggressor in this very specific situation. That said, here's the thing. They actually allowed their own feelings about Gabby to get in the way of what they were supposed to do as police officers. Because if you watch the hour, 17-minute clip of the body cam footage, which you should, you hear them have these conversations amongst themselves where they're clearly trying not to throw Gabby in jail. They're trying to not throw her in jail because they like Gabby, and you see this cute white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes crying hysterically. No one wants to throw her in jail. But if Gabby was a man, or if she was black, they would have thrown her ass in jail. Absolutely. Now, maybe you disagree with my race point because people are touchy about race in this country, but I don't think any man or woman, if they're watching this video and being honest with themselves, can watch that body cam footage and not think, yeah, if the sexes were reversed, she'd be in jail, right? If there was a man who was in the passenger seat of a van, cops pull him out, the female driver has scratches on her face, scratches on her arm, that dude's going to jail. It doesn't matter what the phone call says. It doesn't matter what the context was. It doesn't matter what happened before, at the start of this conflict. He's going to jail because he's a man, and they will be right to do so. But in this case, they let their own bias get in the way of them doing what they should have did by the book, which ironically might have kept Gabby alive. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I agreed with them letting her go initially, kind of like, this does not seem like a situation where she needs to be in jail. Jail is a cage. I think we throw human beings into cages too loose. It's kind of what we do. Pass these laws, they break them, throw them in a cage. I believe a physical altercation can end in a, you know what, go, don't do it again. It just so happened that in this odd case, this ended up being a murder. Those cops feel awful. They feel awful about what happened because they know that their actions are being criticized. They're being thrown under the bus. When people would have also watched this, if we didn't know the conclusion of this story, people will watch that footage. And if the cops had locked that girl up and threw her in jail, they would be saying, yo, really? You couldn't cut her a break? She wasn't a threat to that man, and he didn't want her to be in jail. So why are we putting her in jail? Guarantee that would be the reaction to it. So, yeah, like I said, it is possible for Gabby to be a victim of the homicide and also a perpetuator of the violence in her relationship with her boyfriend, Brian. In fact, and I'm going to end the video here because I'm going on too long. I'm going to read some stats to you because contrary to popular belief, most domestic violent relationships are not unidirectional. They are bidirectional. Unidirectional means one person is the perpetuator of the violence. Bidirectional means both parties are responsible for the violence in their relationships, right? So I'm going to just read some stats. And by the way, these are from the domesticviolenceresearch.org website. It's their website. Here we go. Among epidemiological population samples, the average weighted rate of intimate partner violence reported was 16.3%. Using weighted averages among those reporting IPV, 57.9% of the IPV reported was bidirectional. Of the remaining 42% that was reported as unidirectional IPV, 13.8% was MFPV, 28.3% was FMPV. Among community samples, the average weighted rate of IPV reported was 47.0%. Using weighted averages among those reporting IPV, 59.6% was bidirectional. Of the remaining, 40.4% that was reported as unidirectional IPV, 17.5% was MFPV, 22.9% was FMPV. Among school and college samples, average weighted rate of IPV reported, 39.2%. 51.9% was bidirectional. Of the remaining 48.1% that was reported as unidirectional IPV, 16.2% was MFPV, 31.9% was FMPV. It means most domestic violence couples or relationships, both parties are victims and perpetuators most of the time. For the minority of cases where that's not the case, women perpetuate more violence amongst men in their relationships than men do on women. The reason why we think domestic violence in America is a women's problem is because when men hit women, men are bigger and stronger on average, and so men do more damage. And so women do call the police more. Women do end up in the hospital more when men hit back, or when men hit at all. But this data shows from the Domestic Violence Research.org website that most of the violence is bidirectional. And so Gabby's relationship would fall under that category of being bidirectional. And so she does not need to be the perfect victim for me to mourn her death. Her death is a tragedy either way. She was 22 years old, a baby. Like most people, she would have probably turned into or grown into being a stable, respectful, non-toxic partner in a healthy marriage with somebody else in the very, very near future. Same for Brian. And so I'm going to end it here because I don't want to go too long. I'm already like 15 minutes as I'm watching my timer here, but I don't know how much I'm going to cut in this video. But yeah, that's what most likely happened in this case. You had a couple that was young, in love. People believe that a relationship can't be abusive and also loving. I think that's stupid. I believe when it was working, it felt phenomenal. They were happy. They were great. They were super close. They felt phenomenal about each other. And when it was bad, it got bad. Right? I believe their relationship fell into the majority of domestic violent relationships where they're bidirectional, meaning both Gabby and Brian were abusers and victims, right? They had a similar situation play out outside of that car that happened near that car, probably on a cliff somewhere where they got arguing and then they got physical. Somehow Brian might have pushed Gabby off of him or swung at her. Who knows? She fell, cracked the head, started bleeding. She's dead. He panics, had to hide the body, goes home to his parents, says, you know what? I killed Gabby. Parents say, don't speak anymore, call a lawyer, and now we are where we are today. I think that's what happened, right? I don't think this is Brian being some psychopath or some dude that was super abusive, and so this was always going to happen. I don't believe it. And so I think everyone is speaking about this case the wrong way. Everyone is wrong on this. And hopefully we can get to a point where we can discuss flawed victims, because most victims of violence in this country are going to be flawed. We have this problem, especially when it comes to like police shootings, where a police will shoot somebody who was probably a bad person or a despicable person or just a flawed person. And now it's complicated for us to talk about the police shooting when, why? It's possible for that person to be a flawed person, maybe even a bad person, and for the cop to not have shot them. And I feel like this case here is the same thing. It is possible for us to mourn Gabby's loss because it is a tragedy without trying to paint Brian as this psychopath domestic abuser when we got on tape the police finding Gabby being a primary abuser. So I don't know, man. Let me know if I feel like I've been rambling like a crazy person in this video, but let me know if I'm making sense. Do you agree, disagree? Love to hear your comments down below. Yeah, like I said, rest in peace to Gabby and peace to, her family, whatever. But we have to get better at discussing these cases. So till next time, guys, deuces.